Welcome to episode 142 of Broad Street Hustle. I'm your host, Tommy Nanny, bringing you another exciting week of NFL Divisional Round football. Let's go around the horn. We have Jason Sayada.
Hey, Tom, what's up?
Jason, how are you? We got Jimmy the Chalk.
Good evening.
And we have Christopher Michael Meeker.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. All right, like I said, it is Divisional Round playoffs. This is the round that games become more competitive. You got all good teams that are playing, so we will definitely cover the three games overall briefly and definitely go in depth with the Eagles game. So 4 games to cover. We're going to recap the Eagles Green Bay game from last week and see where the conversation brings us. But it is an episode of just off football. Unless you guys want to talk Sixers, I don't know if anybody has any.
I was thinking
where to talk Sixers.
I was thinking earlier, like if the Eagles don't go to the Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot of bad weeks because we need to at least get close to pitchers and catchers before we can talk about anything else.
We could bury Meeker again in a trivia contest.
Yeah, we might have to do like 3 weeks of trivia consecutively.
Yeah,
if they don't get that close to the start of spring training.
3 weeks worth of that. Okay, sounds good.
And okay, put Walt to work. All right, as always, this episode is brought to you by Giovannina's Pizza. You tried the rest, now try the best. All right, let's jump right into it. Eagles Green Bay last week. Eagles did win that game 22-10, covered the 5.5 or 5, depending on where you saw it. I don't know, pretty boring game. I thought it really got bad there in the fourth where every play was an injury. Not sure what we learned about the Eagles. I think we kind of, what I said, where Green Bay just isn't a very good team, kind of came to fruition, I think. But I'll let Jason cover what his thoughts were.
I mean, for me, the game was pretty much over after the first play. They're immediately behind the 8 ball. And I don't know, they replayed it, and the only replay that they showed that the Green Bay guy had the ball. So I don't know what the replay even accomplished because they made the Eagles keep the ball. So I didn't understand. But, and then the guy, I think he had another bad play where he took the ball out of the end zone, and he didn't fumble again, but he just got buried like way back. Like, I don't know what their philosophy was with doing that, but that didn't work. Love was awful, really bad, and I'm starting to question him. Green Bay did have a lot of injuries that happened during the game that I think hurt them. The offensive line, they lost I think their best lineman, and then all the wide receivers got banged up, so that probably hurt a little bit. The Eagles lost Dean, which could wind up being a problem. Our boy Hurts did not look good. He had the 2 touchdowns. The one where I think they said it was the longest held ball touchdown of the season by any quarterback, which was almost like 7 seconds.
And they never got within 2.5 yards of
it. It was not close.
It was like literally like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And then even the Goddard touchdown, the ball was behind them. Like, Goddard made a great catch, and then obviously, bitched that D-back. I forget his name, but
did you hear Goddard too? He said he doesn't. That final stiff arm probably wasn't necessary.
He said he gave him
He
gave him an extra one on purpose.
One more time.
That guy should have just ran right into the locker room after that. I mean, that was Valentine, I think it was. But anyway, yeah, I mean, not really an impressive win, but I mean, they did what they had to do. Obviously, the offense did not look good, specifically Hurts. I don't know. I mean, what does that mean going forward? I guess we'll see. But it doesn't change my opinion of Hurts. I think he's a problem, and I think when he is going to be forced to win a game by sitting back in the pocket and throwing 30 to 35 passes, I think there'll be problems. But we'll see.
Yeah, one thing I did hear on the radio this week, which I thought was interesting, and I have no actual game. I don't know how the game's unfolded. I don't know who they played. But when Hurts throws the ball 35 times or more, he is 12-2 as a starter. So take that for how you want. And
That
also
even
hurts when
though? I mean, did he even throw the ball 35 times this year?
So spoiler,
No, this is
spoiler.
from
I
22.
had this stat to talk about. So the first 4 games when we were like, oh, the offense hurts, whatever. He threw the ball more than 30 times in each of the first 4 games. They were 2-2, a lot of turnovers. He'd thrown it once 30 times or more in the 12-1 run after that, or whatever it ended up being. So clearly they're not asking him to throw the ball that much. And the game he did was the Steelers game where they were pretty much in control the whole time. But
yeah, but one thing I did write down with Hurts is every time the game came, and I have every play, and I won't go through every play. And you know how I feel about Hurts. I don't think he's very good, but I do think he makes plays later in games when he has to make plays that ultimately can win them games. He was, and you could take this for what it is because the pass to Goddard wasn't a great pass, and Goddard made a great play. But when the game became a one-score game in the third, it became, 10-3. And then again in the fourth, it became 16-10. So both times the game became a one-score game. In those drives, all collectively, Hurts was 6 for 7 for 90 yards, a touchdown, and 2 field goal drives. So they scored, the other field goal, they had a 2-score lead. But still, he was 6 for 7 for 90 yards and a touchdown and a field goal. So, again, he made the plays. Now, the plays that he made weren't anything that me or you probably couldn't make, but regardless, he made the plays that had to be made when they needed him the most, and that's what he's done his whole career so far. So I think the issue is going to be when they're down like multiple scores, and he has to maybe do something. That's where I think it's going to be more. We'll have to see how he does.
because other defenses have to account for Barkley and him running the ball, so that opens up his passing game. But like you said, when the defenses don't care if they're going to run 7 yards and they're playing 2 deep zones and everything else, I think that's where his warts are going to show. So
Yeah, Chalky, what did you think?
yeah, I don't disagree with that concept in general. Spoiler, I don't think that's going to happen this week, but we'll get to that. So I saw a couple of the guys that break film down, and I didn't see anything from Cosell this week. So, Jason, I don't know if you saw anything either, but watching it live, and one of the common themes I saw was that the play calling just seemed to be terrible. So Hurts did not have a great game by any means, but guys were not getting open every play either, where we've seen him make bad decisions or not make proper reads where guys were open. So I don't know how much of that was by design, how much it was ease them back in after missing a couple weeks and shake the rust off, but these guys weren't. Some of the play calls, just why would you have routes? It was almost like last year, like pre-Kellen Moore in some ways. But to me, it's not. I don't feel better about the Eagles' chances to go as far as they could after last week. I think maybe it's more of an indictment of Green Bay not being a very good team, but they did what they had to do. And Love clearly from the start was, the first drive he almost threw an interception, and I think the next one after that or 2 drives later he threw an interception. The elbow was probably bothering him, even though he was able to play. So, and because of their injuries, it's hard to say they beat a really good team. So they did what they had to do. Even when it got close, I was never really feeling like the game was in doubt. So took care of business, if not in a spectacular fashion by any means. So we'll see how that translates to this week, but I don't think they did anything wrong.
Cosell's thing always what hurts is he just doesn't throw the ball on timing. Like he holds the ball too long. Like
there's plays. There was a play, I think it was the
there's
second half,
guys
where he took a bad sack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he did. He did have
It
one.
isn't even him holding the ball. It's where's the clock where it's like, all right, I drop back, 3 seconds goes by, nobody's open. Run, he's still indecisive when to even run with the ball.
Yeah.
I just don't understand taking the sack.
He's
He wasn't even in
indecisive.
the pocket.
Even there's guys that blip open, but he doesn't see. He's not. I think what Cosell said was, and here's what happened, Chalky. Like he wasn't seeing the field. Now that I remember what he said, and Kellen Moore saw that and just said, "Okay, let's scale it back because he's not seeing the field."
I could definitely, I could see that for sure. Like, I don't see that they would call the same. Well, we'll see what the weather does. But if anything, I thought Moore was being extra conservative with his first game back, maybe thinking he didn't need to, dig deep into the playbook to beat this team, which they obviously didn't.
Yeah. No, apparently,
Because it was a completely different game plan than we saw in week
there's
one, which
also
again, first week of the season, but motion, trickery, there wasn't any misdirection or any of that. They just got up early and just kept going right at him.
I mean, honestly, the way their defense is playing and the way their run game is, most people say the only way they lose some of these games, if not all these games, is by turnovers, right? I mean, and there seems to be a directive from whoever, Moore, Sirianni, don't throw the ball, don't turn the ball over to Hurts, and he's not even if you look last year, a lot of his turnovers were kind of 50-50 ball, he would throw the ball up to AJ, and he don't do you don't see those plays at all. At all do you see those plays.
I think more.
So it has to be a conscious effort to not turn
going back to the first 4 weeks when he had at the bye, he had 4 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's thrown 1 since then, which was he tried to force the ball to Devontae Smith and was a little late in the Dallas game. So clearly there's some sort of directive of just if you don't turn the ball over, we'll be in good shape. And the only game they lost was the one he went out early.
I think Moore has done a great job because he basically dumbed down the playbook to fit Hurts.
And the offense coordinators take the brunt of Hurts' miscues. That it's always the offense coordinator, but it's the quarterback.
People are not seeing that. He's not seeing that this guy blipped open in the middle of the field and the ball's got to be out and to the guy. Then all of a sudden the guy's not open anymore, and then he runs around like a chicken with his head cut off. But you're not seeing the field because you're not seeing that this guy was open. You just didn't throw the ball. So,
Mika, your thoughts on the game?
You guys covered a lot of it, but look, I mean, the Eagles won this game with the same game plan they've had for weeks. Just run the ball effectively, clamp down on defense, keep the Packers from executing the red zone, force turnovers, which obviously they did, and play under control and from ahead, which I think is extremely important for this team, is playing from ahead. You covered Jordan Love. He was terrible. He laid another egg in the playoffs. The initial fumble, which I don't know if it was a fumble. Still not sure it's a fumble, but they obviously made them pay on that play, and they never really looked back after that. And Jason mentioned, during the game, Packers got a lot of injuries, and I'm sure that compromised them. And the offense just did enough playing, I guess, what I would call careful football. They're just pounding it with Barkley. Hurts gets 2 touchdown passes, obviously, to Goddard and to Dodson, and just not, like you said, I mean, just not putting him in any position to make a mistake. And they can beat teams like the Packers like that because their offensive line is so good and their defense is playing outstanding. So it wasn't pretty. He did nothing spectacular talking about Hurts, and I've said for a few weeks now they don't need him to. I mean, as long as they can dominate the lines, they don't really need him to make a big throw, and they haven't need him to do that in weeks. And I think, as we get deeper in the playoffs, he's going to be tested, and a big play needs to be made at some point in these playoffs. And I'm not 100% sure he can do that. But maybe they can win this way all through the playoffs. But if they run to a team like Detroit, and maybe even this week, we'll see. But he's going to have to make some plays with his arm, and he just hasn't had to do it. So, like you said, Jason, I don't know if I learned anything from this game at all. I mean, because this was a beat-up Packers team. They were dominated on both sides of the ball. So, this is a bigger test this week for sure.
Okay, and that leads us into this week. So we'll jump into Eagles-Rams. So Rams are coming off a shellacking of Minnesota, which 27-9. Minnesota not really ever in the game. I mean, Rams took the opening drive down and scored, and I guess the closest they got was that incomplete pass that they initially ruled a fumble, and that would have tied it. But I mean, it was an incomplete pass, so they got the call right, and then never kind of let Minnesota in the game. Minnesota didn't really look great. I mean, St. Louis, I thought, or not St. Louis, Jesus, LA they look good though. I mean, you got to give them credit. And now this week, Eagles are sitting at as a 6-point favorite. Over under is 43.5. I think Chalky alluded to I don't know if anybody has like the actual latest weather forecast for this game, but I think I mean I saw like
No.
significant snow at
Yeah,
possible.
the latest I saw was 3 to 5 for the
Yeah.
Philadelphia area starting.
And that's anticipated to be like during the game. Is
So
that
By
starting,
4 o'clock.
yeah, starting by 1 and carrying through to like 7:30. So you're gonna get the whole game covered.
But I think the heavier starts at 4.
Okay,
Is what I heard.
so yeah, that's a little before
yeah?
halftime in
So
theory.
you can analyze a game and say the snow's going to help the Eagles because of the run game or the snow, but at the end of the day, the snow, you don't know who it's really going to help because it's one slip, one lost ball, etc. So it does give a little more randomness to this game, I think. But Jason, how do you ultimately see the Eagles Rams game this week?
Just to step back before I even talk about the teams. Like usually, what happens is when it snows, as long as it's not windy, which I don't think it's going to be windy, I think it actually is going to help the offenses. I think you might have a high scoring game because it's not going to be like a blizzard. It's 3 to 4 inches is a significant amount of snow, but I think it makes it slippery for the D-backs and stuff. So, but anyway, the Rams pass rush has been really, really good as the season wore on. It was great on Monday. I think and everybody's killing Darnold, and Darnold was not good again. But I heard somebody say like out of all the sacks, only one of them was really his fault. Like the offensive line was terrible.
The offense line was
He
bad. He held the ball a little
I
bit
would
on
say,
a
he
couple
holds
of
the
those, but
ball,
Did Ray
and he
Charles
does.
give
He
you that
holds it too long.
analysis?
But is it O'Connell's plays take too long?
Eh.
Yeah, but in a game where your offensive line is getting killed, don't you have to like shorten the routes and stuff?
Oh
Like
yeah, that's a play calling issue if that's the
that's what I'm saying.
case.
It's on O'Connell.
When
So
they were
again,
showing, I don't
huh?
want to interrupt you, but when they were showing from his back, what he had to work with, it wasn't much on these
Because
on
the
this.
play because the routes were too long for an offensive line that was getting dominated like that. So
Yeah,
I think O'Connell really got exposed in the last 2 games of the year, and Darnold obviously did too. But anyway, Higbee got hurt, but I think he's going to play. And the Rams
he's
really
supposed to. Yeah, he's
No,
supposed to
he's
play.
definitely in.
he's in right, so he's back. Dean being hurt might eventually. I don't know if it'll be this week, but might eventually become a problem for the Eagles. He's been really good this year, and they say he's kind of like the leader of the defense, which.
Well, he was. That was his thing coming out of college. Was his
Yeah,
intelligence like at the position,
he
where he was always in the right position. Now physically, he had some liabilities, but
Yeah,
not.
yeah
yeah,
he had the green dot right on his helmet, so he was the one.
Yeah,
That
they're
was
gonna. Zach
Bond's going
Bond's
to have
gonna
it
get
now.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, which I don't know. They also the coach can talk to him up until like 5 seconds left. I mean,
yeah,
Fangio
yeah,
is the one telling them like what the play's going to be up until they show it.
yeah.
So
yeah. But
all he's
you got
doing
to
is
have someone that can communicate that to the rest of the
yeah,
defense too.
right,
But
right.
So
That's
the
all
first
it is.
game they played this year, the Eagles obviously killed them, but Barkley dominated them. So you would think the Rams are going to try to shut Barkley down, which would leave Hurts to kind of have to throw the ball. And Hurts, we already said that could be an issue, especially. I think I heard, and you hear ratings and stuff and quarterback ratings or whatever, but I heard a stat where that was the lowest rated quarterback playoff game for a winning quarterback in like 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, I heard that stat too. It was like a weird.
It
It
was,
wasn't like QBR. It was like some weird stat
yeah.
that they used. But yeah, I
He was
heard
like
that as well.
historically bad last week.
Yeah,
But with all that being said, right, the Rams look great. The Eagles didn't. And the line's still 6. So to me, you throw everything out and you say that's a shady line. And then I saw a stat where also wild card underdogs who win the next week like are really bad, either versus spread or obviously to win the game outright. So I think the Eagles are going to win. I think they'll win by at least a touchdown. You want me to give you a score? I don't know, 27-20.
yeah. I mean, I probably have it a little bit wider. I go back to last week where I just said I didn't find Green Bay to be all that great of a team. I don't find the Rams to be all that great of a team either.
No,
Like
but
you
the
especially
defense has
look
gotten
at
better as the year went on. The
their
defense,
defense. Yeah, you
yeah,
look at their everybody. It's one of McVay is the God's gift to creation of the NFL football. Dude, their offense stinks. They scored 12 points in a game. They scored 9 points in a
yeah,
game, and they won. They won those games. Like outside of scoring 44 against Buffalo, their offense has not been. I mean, I'm sorry, they try to force the ball to Puka way too, like on plays that are just unnecessarily forced to. Cooper Kupp has become a non-entity in these games, which is outrageous. And I do think that although the defense has been playing really well, they're like a small, quick, defense, and that played right into the hands of Minnesota, who likes to spread the football out. Where it's going to be the opposite of the Eagles, where the Eagles are going to play that, bring everything close and pound it. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's a great matchup for the Rams. If you want to say the snow might also make that even worse for the Rams, you can. I still think the snow makes it a little more random, but I don't think it's a great matchup. So I actually have a 33-20. I think it's a rather easier victory if all things are equal. Again, the snow does give it a little bit of a randomness, in my opinion. Chalky.
Yeah, so Hertz's QBR for the Green Bay game was 112, so that wouldn't qualify to.
No, it wasn't QBR.
Yeah.
It was like a weird. It was a stat, and I forget. I heard the exact.
Which
same
I
thing.
think I think looking real quick might be his highest rated playoff game, which would not make sense. So who knows what these stats are worth? But
that's how why. Yeah,
yeah.
that's why QBR is a little like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it was better. It was better than his
just
average
watch
in the
the
22
game.
playoffs where he had two really really good games. But
there's a point. There's still an old adage of just watch the game and you can tell.
Yeah.
Like you don't need these QBR. You can watch the game and tell me he played good or bad.
Right.
I mean.
So I mean, this is it's like Jason mentioned, it's a rematch. Although it's not a week one rematch. The last time they played these guys was the end of November, so much more recent. And although the Rams defense has been playing better, the Eagles handled them fairly easily, and the offensive side of the ball is still 100% healthy. If the weather becomes an issue and you're talking about the trenches, the Eagles offensive line, and they're going to run the ball, let's say the Eagles offensive line will dominate the Rams run defense because they need their pass rush is really what made that defense decent and better. And on the flip side of the ball, the Eagles, although now compared to the last game, Brandon Graham and Dean are hurt, the Eagles defensive run stoppers are still going to dominate the Rams offensive line if it gets down to that. Stafford, I think, is like 1-8 in cold weather games. We all remember the snowball famously when he was on the Lions, but when the weather has been bad this year, Tommy, you mentioned the one game, they got 4 measly field goals against a San Francisco team that had given up in a bad weather game. I think it was a lot of rain that day. And then the only cold game they played this year, they came to New York to play the Jets, who had given up as well, and they got 19. Won the game, but you're going to need at least 20 points to win this week. So barring turnovers or easy points, I don't think they get it. I don't know that we learned a lot from the Eagles this week, but I'm going to say 27-17, and perhaps more comfortably than that score says the Eagles win this game.
So in the first game, the Rams didn't have their right tackle, so he is back for this game. The first game against the Eagles,
Mm-hmm.
So that might help him a little bit.
But to the point, and even if they do want to air the ball out, Stafford is not mobile to begin with, and so him being able to move around in the pocket, and that could be an issue. Whereas at least Hurts can pull it down if he has to. So I just think if the weather becomes a factor, other than the random plays that you mentioned, Tom, where somebody just slips, I don't think it breaks in the Rams' favor anyway.
Yeah, Meeker, how do you see this one?
Well, the Rams defense comes in hot, holding opponents to like under 10 points in their last 4 games, and that actually started right after the Eagles beat them. Right, I think that win streak and this streak with the defense holding under 10 points. So I don't know if the Eagles beat down meant anything to the defense, and they just kind of stepped up at that point. But they're a young defense, and they've gotten better, obviously over.
Wait, what
over
was
the
that?
year.
What was that stat?
What's that?
What was the stat you just gave?
Since they lost to the Eagles, I think that's when that streak kind of, well, they won 5 straight, but I think that streak started where they held teams under 10 points, or at least
Nah,
I
they
was
let
saying
out like
that's
42
the Saints scored 14 and the Bills scored 42, so that's not after the Eagles game, so that's not 100% correct. But
what are you talking about? You're talking about,
they
I mean, all
the
right,
Eagles
no,
beat
but
them, and then they Saints got 14 on them the next week, and then the Bills
okay,
got 42. So after that, yes, it became more of a less than
gotcha.
10 points. But
Well, you said something. Was it you, Tommy? That their defensive line is fast, but they are small. And that's how the Eagles dominated them last game. And if they're going to continue again on the same path of what they've been doing, and just ground the ball, run the ball, the
I
offensive
think
line's
they
going to
play,
dominate.
and I think they play like 5 DBs at many times during the game in their
They
on their
play a lot of
defense.
zone, Rams.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, why not run till you tell me you can stop it? I mean, I know Barkley had a ridiculous game the first time they played for 20, what do you got, 255 yards, whatever he had. But pass when necessary, but run until you tell me you can't. That's
Yeah,
the
but
way
if,
I think
if
it's
they
going to
if
go.
they're gonna load the box on you, like I don't
Well,
care.
if that happens, yeah. I mean, if that happens, if they learned anything from the last game and they're going to key on Barkley, and if that happens, then obviously Hurts is going to have to make some plays. Which is, I was saying, like he didn't have to really do that last week, but he might have to do it this week. Rams have good skill position players, but the Eagles match up pretty well against them in the skill position area. I think they're just as good in the wide receivers and so forth. I just think if the O line holds and Barkley can be as effective running as he has been for forever, basically the whole year, it points in the Eagles' direction. And I think last week was an emotional win for the Rams. You called it, Tommy, on that. Obviously, they're in a short week. They're coming here to Philly in the cold. I just don't see them. I think it'll be a competitive game. I don't think the Eagles are going to blow them out like they did the first game. I have it 24-18. It's kind of a cop out because it's right on the line, but I think it's a little bit lower scoring and the Eagles win by 6.
yeah. I was gonna bring up the emotional value too. Like I don't know, they obviously played with emotional value last. I mean, they did the thing before the game. Blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
like it's hard to do that enough. Like you can't use that this week now. But it also could have been exhausting as well because some of the points that Jason said last week about they got family, they got home, all the things that could have affected them. They used as like a way to build them up, but you don't do that 2 weeks in a row. Now it's like the reality sets in. It's almost like the backup quarterback. You could play well with a backup on the first week when everybody's up for it, and then the adrenaline kind of falls back and you go back to it. So I think that's a big part of it. And the short week, like I would be curious, and Chalky, you're the stat guy over there. Like these teams that have played on these Mondays, I wonder how they fare the following week. I don't know
so
how long.
the one team that did well was when the Rams won the Super Bowl. They played that Monday night game and then came back on Sunday to beat Tampa. Then Dallas won, lost to San Francisco, and Tampa beat Eagles last year and then lost to Detroit. So 1-2 so far.
Yeah, I mean the Tampa, like Detroit was probably a pretty nice favorite, and
Yeah.
I mean I won. I don't know that, but so nothing really there. But yeah, I mean I do think that has to factor in. I mean we use it during the season, so why wouldn't we use
Well,
it
the,
in the
the one
playoffs?
thing that probably will help them is they played them already this year, so they already know a lot about the Eagles. So you know what I'm saying, like that probably helps them in
Yeah.
losing a day of preparation. So
And it was late enough in the year that not much is going to have
not
changed.
much
So,
has changed, right?
it's not like the
Yep.
Green Bay where it was week 1.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I wouldn't be surprised. I know teams that you don't talk about it, but they knew who their opponent was going to be when they went into the game on Monday. They probably already had some
Oh, yeah.
part of
yeah.
their
They definitely
staff.
had advanced scouting.
Yeah, prepping, so it's not like no, I mean more on the physical. Like Meeker said, they're going from Arizona to LA, they're practicing, they're
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
There is still a travel component of it that could affect them.
Yeah.
All
And I
right,
think
anything
I was
else?
just
Go
going to
ahead,
say,
Meeker.
like, I mean, and of course, career wise, I mean, I trust Stafford more than I trust Jalen Hurts to make plays, but he's basically a statue back there, and the Eagles have been getting to the quarterback pretty consistently.
Oh,
You know,
he's a statue as far as taking off, but he moves in the pocket and like he'll step up
Yeah,
in the pocket.
but
Yeah, that's
the only thing with Stafford is we trust him based on his Super Bowl win. But like other than that, what is he? And in that year, if San Francisco catches an interception that's right in the guy's hands, they don't win a Super Bowl, and you might never say you trust Stafford. So, I mean, for 15 years in Detroit, he was a loser. Now, you know what
right.
I'm saying? So,
Bad teams in Detroit for a long time, though. I mean,
I know, but what I'm saying is he won. He went on one playoff run that they shouldn't even won if San Francisco catches an interception, and the whole narrative changes of who he is as a player. To me, he's a good player. That's all he is.
yeah, but
He's
Chalky
nothing.
gave the best stat. I mean, what is he? Chalky 1-8.
I probably saw like
in
1-8
weather.
in certain cold weather games, So
Yeah,
I mean, it's not his fault. He
he's-
played in a dome his whole career, but some of those games were against like bad Bears teams. So
And he's 5-10 when he has to throw the ball more than 35 times. So not good numbers. I mean, it's.
I mean, look, you could say it's an overblown stat, but when you look at dome teams on the road in the playoffs, and I don't have the stat in front of me, so I'm just going to make it up. They don't do well. I'll be confident in that stat. I don't know the numbers, but when they're road teams don't win a lot, but I would think dome road teams win less than anybody
Look,
else
I mean, if you're
in cold weather.
for what it's worth, if you're a smart GM, and you play in a dome, you probably built some of your team around playing in playing at least.
Absolutely. That's how St. Louis built. Detroit has built that to some extent. You're going to build a
So
team
it
that can
isn't
get home
even-
field and play to your advantage. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
not even the weather aspect of it. It's the type of player you have does better on a turf
Yeah.
field, on a dome field than on a grass field.
Mhm.
So there's definitely truth.
Saints lived by that for the whole Breeze's whole career, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's truth to
But
it.
the Saints are the only dome team to win a playoff game at Philadelphia.
Yeah, twice,
Once.
I think.
Once.
Then they beat them
In Philly. In Philly. They beat them.
They beat them in
The
that real
one
close
Folds
game.
the one Folds year, but then they beat Philly in New Orleans twice.
Yeah, they beat them in Philly. Okay.
Well, Walt, if you're listening, maybe a trivia.
I did
question.
not research that, but I
okay.
did see that. It's the Eagles are 1-6, or Eagles are 6-1 against dome teams at home in the playoffs, which is Atlanta at least twice, Minnesota twice, and whoever else.
All right, so that's anything else before we go to look at some of these divisional round games? I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on, and we'll go just in the order that the games are actually being played this week. Like I said, this is the week that games tend to be a little bit closer. That wild card week is where you see a lot of blowouts, and we saw it. What was there one game that was within less than double
The
digits?
Washington game, that was it.
It's the only one less than, which is crazy. So hopefully we get some more competitive games this week. And the first one, Houston is they're becoming Mr. Saturday football. Houston at KC, Kansas City sitting as an 8.5-point favorite coming off the bye. Houston, took care of business against. I don't know if I wrote that one down. The Chargers. I don't have the score, but Justin Herbert was just. Oh my God, was he bad
Awful.
in that game? And Stroud, I mean, from what I've seen, Stroud didn't do anything great. I mean, he made the plays here and there, got a little bit lucky, but 8.5 is Kansas City. Jason, how did you see this game?
Well, first of all, if I'm Howie Roseman and the Eagles somehow lose this game, or even if they win, I would be calling the Chargers and seeing if they're interested in a Hurts for Herbert swap.
Oh, well, I can't imagine.
The Chargers might laugh at them, but
yeah, I would think so.
You never know. Harbaugh likes running quarterbacks, so I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, the Texans dominated the Chargers. The Chiefs have been off. The Chiefs don't cover any of these games, and this and that, and they don't look that good. And the Texans' defense is looking good, and I don't know. I'm just of the opinion that, and we all know what Reed's record is off a bye. It's good. There's a mismatch, total mismatch, coach and quarterback. I still think the Chiefs' defense is better than the Texans' defense. Chiefs were going to win this game, and they're going to cover too. I think they win by 10 points.
Yeah, Meeker?
Yeah, the Texans played the Chiefs in week 16, so just about a month ago, and they beat them 27-19. And statistically, the game was fairly close, but then again, most of the Chiefs' wins this year have been fairly close. But this is the playoffs. Mahomes isn't going to fall apart like Justin Herbert did last week, and this is uh, he obviously knows how to win big games. So if it comes down to that, I'm definitely going to favor the Chiefs here. Chiefs' strength has been their defense for the last 2 years now, and I think Spagnuolo comes up with the right game plan to take advantage of their weak offensive line and get Stroud off rhythm. Look, Mahomes is Mahomes. He makes the plays in the most important parts of the game. Like Jason said, this is a mismatch in those aspects. But I'm because of the fact that they don't blow anybody out and they don't seem to cover, and these games are all seem to be close that the Chiefs play. I'm going to make it close, 24-17, which means I'm picking the Texans to cover. But obviously, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win. It's death, taxes, and Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. So,
Chalky.
Further to Meeker's point, I think the Chiefs are the only team with more than 4 wins in the league this year that didn't score 30 points in any one game. So, best team in the league and never broke 30. So, it's hard to take to lay more than one score on the line, but I'm with Jason. I mean, it was a close game. I'm looking at it now. It was a close game last time they met, and it was never more than a one-score game, and Houston actually had the lead in the third quarter at one point, but I think it's at least a 10-point win for Kansas City, even if it's 27-17. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think Kansas City rolls in this game. I mean, this is Reed obviously doesn't lose this divisional round games coming off a bye. I mean, Houston, I know Jason and Jimmy picked them to win, but overall, like, we were down on Houston, and now they beat a Chargers team who were awful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still down on Houston. I mean, I can't forget about the 6-7 games prior to last week's game. So I just don't think Houston's that good. And I think Kansas City is a professional team that is, does this every year in the playoffs. I think we were talking before the show. Reed's had 2 weeks to prepare, so you're going to see some new wrinkles. So although they haven't scored points all year, I think this is the game where you'll see it. So I have an easy double-digit victory as well.
Chalky, do you have any stats on? I mean, obviously the Chiefs have played a lot of playoff games in the last 5-6 years. What they're against the spread? Or I'm obviously favorite most of these games. So how are they against the spread? Do you have that?
I do
This
not.
year?
I do not have that.
This year?
No, for
Is
just
the,
basically
the
playoffs,
Mahomes
like,
era
run.
of the playoffs? Yeah, I don't have that. I mean,
I
obviously,
mean, I can tell you last year they played Miami in the cold deck
And they killed them.
Then they were a 5-point underdog against the Ravens in the championship game
won
the game.
And were they a dog against Buffalo? Well, they were a dog against San Francisco in the Super Bowl, right?
So last year they were 3-0. Last year, put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, last year was the 2 road games they had last year were the first 2 playoff road games Mahomes ever had to play. So unless maybe that Patriots championship game was they were a dog, but I don't know. Like they've been favorite pretty much all the time. So any loss they've had would have been
remember.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Washington at Detroit. Detroit is currently a 9.5-point favorite. Obviously, Washington's coming off a 23-20 victory against Tampa. Tampa really didn't play that well. They were kind of winning it. Baker had that fumble that really turned the game around. I wonder if
they
win
looks
that game if he doesn't fumble.
Yeah.
They win that game.
But Washington got the job done. I mean, Daniels made the plays on that last drive, and I still think his first instinct is to run more than pass, and he took some pretty big wallops in that game. So longevity wise, I'm not sure, but they did win and they did advance. Another game that would go towards what Jason said, where an underdog in the wild card game wins. Now they're coming in as a 9.5-point underdog to Detroit. Mika, you're up.
Yeah, they showed heart last week, taking out Tampa Bay by dominating time of possession. especially in that game, capitalizing on that fumble, of course. And they're a nice story this year, but they depend pretty much solely on Jaden Daniels to make the plays to win games. And for the most part, he's done that this year, but they can't run the ball effectively. Their defense is suspect versus the past, and they don't have a lot of experience in big games, obviously. When's the last time that this team hasn't been in the playoffs in forever, but I don't know about every player on their roster, but they don't have a whole lot of experience. Plus, the Lions are getting healthier. They get back Montgomery, they get back someone, Arnold, right, on defense. I don't think he played the last game. And they're just a machine offensively. And they're home and they're rested. And, I just can't see how the Commanders make this a game. I think the only two ways that they could would be if Washington somehow finds a running game in this game, which I don't think is going to happen, or Campbell goes for fourth down on every single fourth down, no matter where he's at in the field, and makes a couple mistakes.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan Quinn might go for every fourth down.
Yeah, right.
It sure seemed like it in that last game he did.
But I don't think neither of those things are going to happen. I think, Gibbs has a big game. Goff goes for like 250 and 3 touchdowns, and they roll. I'm going to make it 37-23 Lions. They cover.
Okay, Chalky.
Yeah, I mean, give Daniels credit. He's finding ways to win these close games late with really no offensive line and like 1.5 offensive weapons on his side of the ball. And I did pick, when we did our picks last week, I had the Rams taking out the Lions here, but that was more based on the matchup and 2 dome teams. This is going to be a romp, and Lions will cover and win very, very easily.
Okay, yeah, I'm telling you, I don't really even know how to answer this. So I haven't made a decision. I guess I'm going to make it right now. I thought Detroit was going to win this game by a lot. I thought Detroit was also going to be a 12-point favorite. Now I'm not saying I've been swayed, but I'm gonna go with the Washington to cover the spread. I don't think they're gonna win the game. Honest to God, I thought the spread would be higher than 9.5. So I do think it's a little bit shady on the spread. It makes me believe like Washington scores late to cover. Like something happens where they're not in the game, but they do cover the 9.5 points. So I'll go with Washington, but I think Detroit. Look, I got Detroit winning it all, so I can't see them losing to Washington, nor really being like threatened by Washington. But I will take Washington to cover. Jason,
I don't change my pick based on what.
No, I didn't have a pick
up until the first 2 picks were made, right? Is that the logic?
No, I honestly did. Even before the show, I said to Jason, I really don't know about this game, but
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, my only concern with the Lions in this game is they struggle against these quarterbacks who run, right?
Yeah.
And this guy's going to run. I just think, you guys know, I think the Lions are just a juggernaut this year. And I fall back on, again, the Commanders went on the road and won as an underdog last week, and now they're coming in and everybody's like, oh, they won the game and they played well, which they played all right. I mean, they won, so I guess they played well. But I just think the Lions are too strong. If I'm wrong, it's because the Lions are Daniels. I mean, and maybe that's a bet. Daniels, I don't know what his rushing over-under is, but maybe that's a bet. But I have to stick with the Lions. I think they win comfortably by 2 touchdowns.
Okay, and then obviously Eagles Rams, which would be the first Sunday game. So we'll go to the game of the week. I mean, this could be the AFC Championship, the Super Bowl all in one. Baltimore at Buffalo. Baltimore being a 1.5-point favorite. Now, Buffalo did open as the favorite when the line was first posted, but I think within 24 hours it got moved to Baltimore as a 1.5-point favorite, where Buffalo was like a 1-point favorite. So that's a pretty good move in the line. So, Chalky, curious to hear what you have to say.
So just going back to what Jason just said, on DraftKings, 60 or more rushing yards for Jaden Daniels is plus 105. So
That's a lot of yards.
that would
for
be,
Russell.
yes.
Wow,
That,
and it's plus 105.
So I mean,
Yeah.
60 times 17 means you'd be 1,000-yard rusher.
so there's not a true, okay, wait, I'm sorry. There isn't actually an over under. 55.5 is that's juiced. That over is minus 115. Under 55.5 would be minus 110.
But if they get down, I mean, which they could very well likely get down early in that game, he's going to have to throw the ball a lot more than he's. Well, I mean, he still runs for effective yards, but I just
Well, the thing with him too, he's like similar to Hurts. There's design runs and there's breakdown. He does both. It's not just, and he's much quicker to run than a Hurt. Like he goes, drops back, it ain't there. He takes off. He doesn't like play around in the pocket.
Yeah. Anyway, so last week when we did this, I had Baltimore beating Buffalo on the road. Nothing I saw last week makes me change that opinion, so I'll say Baltimore wins, and they'll win by more than one, so they will cover.
Yeah, this was one for me that I go back and forth. I see the 1.5 of Baltimore, and for sure it's like how can you not take Baltimore? Give him 1.5. Obviously Buffalo, that's something shady. But then I started to think, you know what? It's like the obvious shady. Like everybody sees, why is Baltimore giving 1.5? And I know they're ranked, like if you look at power rankings, etc. But they're giving 1.5 to the Buffalo on the road. Like it becomes that reverse shady. It's too shady, so now it makes you think Buffalo. But then I see the public is actually on Buffalo, so then it makes me think Baltimore again. So with all that being said, ultimately I say Baltimore is going to win and cover. But this is where. These are games Lamar has come up small in the past, so there's no guarantee you won't see that again. I don't think Buffalo's defense is all that great, but I don't know. But I do have Baltimore.
The one thing I don't like about this is that this is being hyped up as the career-defining game for either Allen or Jackson, and it's like they've both made the championship game before and failed to win. So
I think it's more Lamar, though. I mean, Allen has played really well in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even though they lost to the Chiefs, they lost because the idiot.
Right. It wasn't his fault they lost to the Chiefs that year.
Didn't squib kick it. He kicked it in the end zone and gave
No, every year the Ravens lose every year, and you could point to Lamar. In the game they lose, you could point to Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, it was clearly on him last year.
I think it will mean more for Jackson's legacy, quote unquote, if he wins this game. But if whoever wins this game loses to Mahomes next week, I don't think it goes that far.
Yeah,
for anybody's career-defining game. So they're drumming up, attention. But.
Yeah, and these are the games they hype up, and then it's a 10-6 game, and it's terrible. But we'll see. Jason, where did you see it?
I mean, obviously what we did last week, the diagram of I had this game being played, and I had Baltimore winning, and just like Chalky, there's nothing that changed my mind. The only thing that I don't like is. This is a little bit of a slap in the face to the Bills. Like, they could. This is like bulletin board material. Like, hey, they made us the underdog at home. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that's being said all week. Like, So I don't like that. I kind of wish Buffalo was favored in this game.
Yeah.
So that scares me a little bit. And obviously Jackson scares me, although he didn't do anything to scare me last week. So. I'm going to stick with the Ravens, but the one thing that scares me is Buffalo might be really up for this because it's a slap in the face to them.
All right, Meeker, let's take us home.
Yeah, so both teams dominated last week. Both were impressive in both phases of the game. And the Ravens continue to bully teams with their running game. They just tore the Steelers up. I mean, didn't they? I've never seen what I saw last week. I think they ran 12 or 13 run plays in a row without throwing the ball.
And such garbage, though. The Steelers.
Oh man,
they quit. They quit so bad.
Oh my God.
Someone has to get fired. Like this has got to be like. I saw what was it, Lambert or Ham? One of them died, and I think it's Lambert. Lambert's like on Twitter, like destroying Tomlin. Like they're.
He also has severe CTE, I would assume.
He does, but I think like the former players are like, all right, enough is enough with this guy. But I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, Meeker. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I mean, that kind of stuff happens in college, but I don't usually see it in the pros where you just run that many times and just run it right down their throat. But um, look, it's a matchup of two MVP candidates, squaring off in what seems to be the biggest game of the year. Kind of feels like the Super Bowl. And I know last game the Ravens dominated the Bills 35-10, but that was week 4. It was a long time ago. The Bills were missing 3 starters on defense in that game. Henry was obviously ridiculous. He had almost 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both teams seem to be putting it all together, though. I think it's an evenly matched game, and I think a lot of matchups, seem to in the media favor Baltimore, but I don't think it's as lopsided as it seems. And I've said it last week. I just think it's Josh Allen's year. I think they're home. I think he's going to will this team to win, and I think they're going to win the game. And I think it's going to be high scoring. And I'm going to say 33-31 Buffalo. You still with us, Tom?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got some blips. I know. It's always seems
I just trust them. I mean, look, we've talked about it, and we've obviously seen Lamar not show up in the playoffs, and this might not be the defense that he has a hard time with, but money on the line. Who do I trust more? I trust Josh Allen more than I trust Lamar. And if it comes down to a big play, whether it's running or passing, I think Allen can make that play. So I'm going to roll with the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, what in Lamar's defense, he never had a Henry either. Like that's
No,
definitely
that's a
making
big difference. Yeah.
that's making a difference for him. I
Yep.
mean, even last week, like Jason alluded to it, he looked good, but he only had to throw for 175 yards. Like, and he's not put in situation. The passes aren't the hardest passes in the world because they're coming off of play action. So, it could just be that he's the missing link to help Lamar get to that next
I
level.
mean, basically, this is a carbon copy of Jalen Hurts, but I just
Mhm.
think Lamar Jackson is just a better player than
Yeah.
Hurts.
And I mean, if you look at his playoff failures, like you just said 38-31. Yeah, they never scored 31 in the playoffs in a game he lost. It's usually they don't get to 20, and that was the struggle. So I think if they get to 31, they find a way to win because I think Buffalo doesn't get to, but
Well, the one thing that the Ravens have been doing lately defensively, they've been getting to the quarterback, but Josh Allen doesn't take sacks. I mean, he's sacked least of any quarterback in the league this year. So they're winning not only with the running game, but they're also winning with good defense. And I just don't see them getting to Allen because he just doesn't get sacked. He gets out of there. So,
and I think he's significantly cut down on the turnovers this year too, right?
of
Yeah,
course.
it's the lowest he's ever
So,
had. Throwing
you know.
the ball wise.
Lamar too. Lamar hasn't turned the ball over much at all either.
Yeah, well, his numbers are ridiculous, like 40-4 or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's going to be
He's not
really,
fumbling too. Like he's prone to fumble sometimes, and this year he hasn't done that either.
it's going to be really cold there.
Really cold.
Like 10 degrees or something like that.
Yeah.
Or at least that's
And I don't know who that favors in this game. I mean, I don't think there's a big advantage just because it's going to be cold.
Yeah, I mean, Baltimore's used to playing in the cold. It would be cold in Baltimore this week if they were the home team anyway. Actually, I don't know where they are in the terms of the snowstorm, but
isn't it Buffalo cold though? More like
I mean, Buffalo is more frigid temperatures for sure.
They have the propensity for winds too. Like I
Yeah.
don't know if it is or not, but
The wind could be a real wild card if that's kicking around there because Baltimore's not going to be used to that.
yeah.
okay. Let's before we sign off, anybody have a bonus pick for the national championship game in college football? I mean, Chalky, you're fighting
That line,
fighting
well,
Irish?
that line keeps dropping. Let me see. Ohio.
What is it at? Chalky.
It's back up there.
It was.
It's 8.5 now. It was moving around. I'm
that's
gonna
because-
say
That's because every O'Shaughnessy or McCaffrey is betting Notre Dame. It ain't sharp money; it's drunk money.
I'm gonna say at the very least, do an alternate line and lay 13.5 with Ohio State because that's plus 140, and you can go higher maybe, but I do not think it'll be a close game in the end. Ohio State wins by at least 2 touchdowns.
So I got my heart taken out because I entered a Wiesn contest, and there were 2,700 people around the country in it. And going into last week's games, I was 11th in the whole country, and I'm no longer 11th. So I lost both games. So I'm out. Obviously, I can't win. Might have been good publicity for the podcast if I won, because I probably would have got interviewed. But that's done. It's over. So I don't care who wins.
Is this you talking about college or are you talking about pros?
Well, I was in a pro contest, which I didn't do well in this year. But then they threw me into this college contest. So I was like, all right, I'll play. Well, after the first 2 rounds, I was ranked 11th. Like I was 7, because you had to pick the games against the spread, but then you had to rank your games. So I was 7-1, but the only game I lost, I had ranked the lowest. So it wasn't that much of a shot,
Right.
against me. And I had a real chance.
And what team screwed you over?
Would
Notre
that be
Dame.
Penn State?
But the team
Well,
the team
so-
that stunk that screwed you over was
Oh well, Penn State
Yeah.
and Texas both screwed me. So.
Well, but Penn State was the
Penn
death
State-
knell. Once
Penn State, when I lost the Penn State game, I was out.
Yeah.
So the Texas
Yeah, you had to go 2-0. But
It
Penn
didn't
State
matter.
didn't. Drew Allen scored. the team played
Yeah.
fine.
I
I don't know what pro scouts see in this kid. There's guys that were saying like if he came out this year, he would be a top 3 quarterback taken in the draft, and maybe top 10 pick. I don't see it. I mean,
that might be more of an indictment of his quarterback crop, because I mean I don't know. I didn't watch a lot of Miami games, but their quarterback didn't. You're going to take Deion's kid in the top 10? Sorry, I'm not interested in that.
Aller's not going to come out.
No, but
right?
he would have been number
No.
one maybe. But who's he number one against? You, me, and
Those-
Sister Marie.
those-
Like
in this quarter, right? In this year, right?
it's not a
Obviously,
good
if it was a
quarterback.
different year, it'd be a different story. But even so, I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about him as a
no,
pro
they think
quarterback.
he's highly thought of in general.
He's got
It
he's got
certainly
the
seems
physical
like, but
skills. He's got the physical skills, but he doesn't have the skills to play in the NFL.
There's a lot of guys with a big arm.
Yeah.
who's the last?
just
Who's the
can't
last?
win
Who's the? Was Kerry Collins the last half decent quarterback to come out of Penn
That's
State?
about it.
Yeah.
That's about it. Yeah.
Well, Todd Blackledge, but that was before your guys' time.
I said half decent.
Wow. Michael Robinson
For the
turned out to
pros,
be a
Todd
good-
Blackledge didn't have a stellar pro
He
career.
got drafted. What was he drafted?
Curry at least had a career.
Yeah, he got drafted over Dan Marino. I wasn't that.
Michael Robinson turned out to be a good pro as a fullback.
He
but
just was.
but
Yeah,
a
he did
pro.
not play quarterback.
Yeah, he was a fullback. But
Yeah, they don't really churn out quarterbacks at Penn State.
no, but
Never
they
had.
do got another
Linebacker, you
defense-
still, but yeah.
another linebacker / defense.
Well,
and
that kid's really, really good.
Yeah.
Carter's
He'll
gonna
be a top 5, top 3 pick probably.
Parsons type guy is going to be like the same kind of guy. As
Yeah, he
Parsons.
reminds you of Parsons. Yeah.
Okay, well, episode 142 of Broadsheet Hustle. We'll be back next week for the championship round. Hopefully, the Eagles are still in it. We shall see. Episode 142, Broadsheet Hustle.